be ready to go. What time do you have right now? Perfect. So we're pretty much on the same time. So I'll just be waiting for you at 59. All right. Yep, and we're live on our sides. We're on Facebook and all that stuff. And feel free to mention that too. Cool. Actually, you know what? Wait, hold on. Can you tilt your camera down just a little? Yeah. Just a bit. And back it up. Back it up. Can you back it up at all? Actually, you know what? That's fine. That's fine right there. That's good. Yeah. All right, man. See you soon. Peace. Good luck. Fuck.
All right, can anybody hear me? Sorry, looks like we got some poor connection on the Instagram side. Give me just a second. All right. Hold on just a sec, guys. creeping in. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. My name is Walter Newman. I'm a signature fly designer for Umpqua Feather Merchants. We just wanted to give a quick shout out to Trouts Unlimited. They've been helping us kind of put these events on, and it's been pretty awesome so far. I don't know if you guys have been watching at all, but let's just go ahead and get going. Looks like everything. Um, looks like everything was going. Well, let's just get going on this other feed here then. So what we're going to be tying up today is a micro matcher. So what the micro matcher is it's a little Baetis imitation that I created. Works really well in the tailwaters of Colorado. Really anywhere you find your Baetis. So we're just going to get started. I have a size 22 TMC 101 hook in the vise. I just got started off with some 70 denier in chartreuse thread. Sorry, get this all situated in a chartreuse thread. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 micro fibbets or micro fibettes, whatever you guys want to call them. Going to get those pulled off. And going to start those on top of the hook shank and just tie those backwards in. So once those are tied in, we're going to do one wrap just right underneath. Going to pull these tails apart. And then we're going to take this piece of thread here. We're going to feed it in between the hook and the thread, kind of through the bend here. I don't know if you guys can see that. And we're going to pull one piece of thread onto each side of that middle fiber here. We're going to let that down, and that's just going to help you split your tails. Do a couple wraps there. Trim this up just a little bit, and that'll keep your tails split. Pretty much no matter what happens, those things are going to stay split always. We're going to take next just a little piece of black extra small wire. We'll wrap that on the hook shank on the side closest to me. We're just going to wrap that back just a hair. Continue to go forward. And we're going to trim off all that mess at the front of the hook. Just like that. Now from here, we're just going to counter wrap that wire. Try and give this fly some ribbing. Get that tied off. Get rid of that. Next, for our wing case, we're just going to use a little tiny piece of thin skin, about 1.5 millimeters. Thin skin seems to be the magic number for this fly. We're just going to tie that in on top of the hook here. Make sure you leave yourself a little bit of space in front of the hook eye just to make sure you don't crowd that too much. Give you some room to tie off at the end so you can actually get tippet through here when you're fishing. All right, So let's untwist our thread a little bit. Going to try and give ourselves a little bit nice smooth underbody here. It's going to make tying in our legs much easier. Awesome. Now we're just going to take these little pieces of rubber here. So I don't know if you guys can see that. It's called Senyo's Shaggy Dub, and it's actually just comes in a little dubbing package, and it's just a little pack of about 1 million of these little rubber fibers here. You can kind of pick through them and see if you can find a straight one that you like. I'm kind of picked through on this pack, so we might be finding some curly ones today. We'll see. We're just going to X-wrap those in. And what we're going to do is we're going to do actually 3 sets of these legs. Give that a little rough trim here. Let's grab ourselves another leg. Do the same thing right in the middle. X-wrap that guy in there. You don't have to make these legs perfect right away. What we're going to do is we're going to come through with some dubbing afterwards. And you can kind of get those legs to sit where you want by using that dubbing if they're not perfect or you don't like exactly where they're at. Next, we're going to use one more of those little rubber legs here. Going to tie this one all the way forward on that hook there. All right, so now that we got those legs in there situated, I'm going to start wrapping this back kind of towards where you started that wing case at. Give these ones a rough trim as well. And now we're going to take some super fine dry fly dubbing in a gray. And that's what we're going to use to dub this. So we want a pretty tight noodle. You can build a little bit of a taper into it if you want. And that's going to give us kind of that beefy thorax we like to see in our betas. Now when you tie this wing case in, when you pull tension in the thread, almost pull it back away from the eye of the hook, and that'll kind of suck that wing case down and keep your eyelet pretty clear. Then we're just going to come in with a quick 2 or 3 turn whip. You don't have to go crazy on the whip because we're going to put some glue on here, some UV resin, and that'll keep this thread in strong even if you don't get as much of a whip finish as you want. Let's cut that extra wing case off here. All right. Last, we're just going to take some of this UV resin. What we're going to do is we're going to build up that thorax with the resin. Kind of get that coated on there. Just gives this fly a good sheen. Adds to the durability. Get that all cured up real quick. All right. We're just going to one last trim. I like to trim the legs about half the length of the thorax, or the whole body of the fly, excuse me. Do the same on both sides. And we're going to trim these tails. I like to trim these tails about the length of the fly. And that should do it. So I don't know how well you guys can see that. It's kind of our completed fly here. It's a nice little size 22. I like to fish it as my point fly a lot, especially when I know they're eating Baetis or there's Baetis active in the water. This is kind of a pattern that they don't see a whole lot of yet, I'm assuming. And it does a really good job of kind of imitating those crawlers, and depending on how big you build up that wing case, it can kind of look like one of those Baetis that's getting ready to pop and move up. Works well as a dropper. You can also fish a weighted version of this. If we got some time later, I will tie one of those up as well. So let's get on to some little bit bigger stuff. Hopefully you guys can see a little bit better. Next thing we're going to be tying is a little yellow Sally I invented. So this one we call it the Stunted Sally. It should be available to you guys January of next year through Uncle Feather Merchants. This is actually one of my favorite go-to patterns. I fish this fly a lot. There's always yellow Sallies in the water. Really doesn't matter what time of the year. Obviously, they're a little bit more prevalent of a food source kind of in the summer. But this is always kind of seems to be one of my favorite go-to attractor patterns. Looks like we just got Instagram going here. Sorry, excuse me a sec. Can you guys hear me on Instagram? All right, sorry guys on Instagram. I'm not sure why this just randomly started working, but I'm glad it did. So let's get going again. So we are going to get going here with a yellow Sally pattern. This is one I call the Stunted Sally. This should be available to you guys through Uncle Feather Merchants next year, starting in January. This is one of my favorite kind of top fly patterns. I like to fish this kind of as my weight fly on a lot of my rigs. So this hook here is pretty little, size 16. And we're just going to get started with some 70 denier and wood duck. So I'm going to get that thread started on the hook here. And next what we're going to do, we're just going to take stranded little rubber leg. Doesn't really matter, whatever rubber legs you like. These happen to just be the ones I have laying around. I'll tie them with floss. I'll tie them with seriously anything that's laying around. Works good for this pattern. I do like this one, how it is kind of the modeled barred, I guess, look. So what I just did is I pulled one side of the rubber legs towards me on the thread, or towards me on the hook, and then I'm just going to fold this one over. I like to stretch this. That'll help keep your flies, keep the body nice and thin. That'll also kind of give you that split that you want. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. And then we're just going to wrap that back forward. Awesome. So I'll trim those legs just to get them out of the way, and we can use them later. Trim that tail. I like trim it about 3/4 of the length of the body, maybe about the length of the body. Kind of just like that. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is right here I have a little piece of midge tubing, and what I've done already is I took a piece of extra small black wire, and I threaded it through the middle of that midge tubing. And so that stuff's pretty hollow. And what this is going to help us do is kind of create a really even ribbed look. And it's also going to kind of just increase the durability of this fly. So I'm just going to wrap this on the side of the hook nearest to me. Once I get a pretty firm thread wrap down, I'm going to kind of stretch this midge tubing out. And I'm going to wrap that down the shank of the hook until I get just in front of my tails. And I can let that go. And what we're going to do is we're going to give our thread a little bit of a counterclockwise spin, kind of loosen that up. We want a nice even underbody for this fly. Awesome. Looks like that's working out. So now we're just going to start doing touching wraps up the body here. Once we kind of get to that spot where we stopped our thread earlier, go ahead and just tie that off. Stretch that tubing out. Get a nice cut. Clean that up a little bit. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take about 1.5 inch long piece of scud back. And this is what we're going to use for our wing case. This stuff's really good for small flies even. It stretches out and you can almost kind of make it as big or as small as you want. Yeah, sorry guys. We were having some technical difficulties here earlier. Let's see if we can get this. All right. Well, I'm going to try my best. I'll show you guys when it's done so you can kind of hopefully see what I'm talking about a little bit better. Being on Instagram Live, we're kind of locked into this forward-facing camera, you know, stuff like that. Technology, it's a lot smarter than I am. So let's take this wing case and get that tied in on top of the hook. Travis is saying closer. Never met that kid in my life. He probably isn't very good at fishing. Alrighty. I'm just kidding. I know Travis. I'm not actually mean. So once we got that wing case in, kind of where we like it, let's build up a little bit of a underbody here. Just going to make dubbing a lot easier when we start on this thorax. Cool. So something I really like about this fly that's a little bit different is we use some hot pink ice dub for the first section of this thorax. And the reason I started doing that or thought of that is I noticed some of those Yellow Sally dry fly patterns kind of had a little egg sac type deal on the bottom of the fly, and I was getting super into some of those Euro flies that always have those super cool hot spots, and just thought this would be kind of a fun and cool way to integrate a hot spot into a stone fly in kind of a different way that maybe the fish aren't so used to seeing. So I will dub that down pretty tight. Now I'm checking my proportions here, and I like where that's at. So now I'm just going to wrap right in front of that pink on the body. I'm going to fold this thorax, fold that wing case right over the top of the thorax here. I'll stretch it out a little bit just so the wing case is about the same width as the bead here. Now we're going to fold this straight back again and wrap it back over. And that's going to give us a really good looking sectioned off kind of model. All right. Sorry if you guys are commenting or asking questions that I haven't gone over or I've missed them. In case you're just getting started, what I'm tying right now is it's called the Stunted Sally. It's a little kind of miniature, less intimidating version of a yellow Sally. It tends to not really scare fish away. And sometimes when I'm throwing big stones and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of see they know there's typically not that big of bugs in the river, or there is, and they know that yours is fake, so it kind of puts them off, or at least in my experience, I probably just can't cast. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take some golden, I believe that's Antron dubbing in a yellow Sally or a yellow color. And we're going to start dubbing in front of that pink hotspot now, kind of wrapping back towards it. Just want to get that a little bit filled up. And then we're going to go back to this joint right here. And this is where we're going to tie in our legs. So same thing on the legs. Same material on the legs, I should say. I'm just going to wrap one around the hook closest to me. And I'm going to wrap one around the hook on the far side of the hook, or your guys' side. And kind of pinch those. Give those a couple nice secure turns. And it's all right if these legs kind of go crazy right now. You just want to make sure they're in. We can correct really anything when we go back and redub or add some more dubbing in here. So now we're just going to take one more pinch of dubbing. Now we can kind of position those legs where we want. There we go. I like that. So let's get our dubbing finished up. Go right behind the bead. Refold this wing case right over the top. I'm going to stretch it out again. A good kind of unit of measurement for you guys, I guess, when you're trying to tie these at home. Whatever size bead you're using, stretch this scud back so that it matches the size of that bead. So on this one, I think I have a maybe 2.3 millimeter bead on here. So when I stretch that scud back, I kind of want it to be right around that 2.3 millimeters. I don't know where I just set my width there. Okay, we'll see how this goes. So yeah, kind of measure it however you can, or with whatever bead size you're using, and that'll kind of makes your proportions right. Just makes the fly look good. So I'll cut that thread off, stretch the scud back out just a little bit, cut that off. Then we're going to trim your legs about the length of the body, maybe a hair shorter. Awesome. And if you're like me, you don't like the yellow thread on top of your wing case, kind of hit it with a black Sharpie. We'll make everything on the top there be black. So let's see, bring this a little closer so you guys can see kind of what we're doing here. But so that's the stunted Sally. So it's a really good little stonefly pattern. You know, when you want to get some weight for your rigs to go down deep in the water column, all that good stuff. This is a really good pattern without kind of turning those fish up. Alrighty. So I know a bunch of you guys just joined. So we're going to go back and we're going to retie this fly called the micro matcher. I'm sorry for you guys who know that is a little fly. This one is actually going to be a size 22 on a TMC 101 hook. The hook on that last fly, somebody was asking, I believe I just tied that one on a TMC 101 again. That was a size 16. And Taylor wants to see a weighted one, so let's tie a weighted micro matcher. So the weighted micro matcher is not out through Umpqua right now. I have the unweighted version of this fly you can buy in any of your Umpqua stores currently, or any of your stores that sell Umpqua flies. So now what I have in the vise is a TMC 101. This is size 22 with a 1.5 millimeter. Let's see if I can zoom this in for you guys a little bit. With a 1.5 millimeter radiant tungsten bead in a green. Oh, that's a little out of focus. Sweet. All right, so it looks like it's a little better. So for this one, like I said, TMC 101, micro matcher, 1.5 millimeter tungsten bead. I'm going to tie it in a chartreuse, so hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better. I'm going to start the thread about halfway down the shank of the hook. And when you cut off this tag end of your thread, you want to save that or set that aside because we're going to use that here in just a second, actually. So if I can find my microfibettes, here we go. So we're going to use some microfibettes for the tail, or fibettes. I don't know how you say it. Size 22. I was fishing this in Colorado when I created it, actually. All right, so we're going to take 3 tailing fibers, the microfibettes, or however you say them. And you can use the tips of these. It's kind of a pain in the butt, and it does make the fly look better, but honestly, it doesn't fish any different. And I like to think that the thicker the tail, the easier the fish can see it. And I kind of think it's one of those trigger points for fish when they see these bugs in the water, to see those tails. What kind of ice is this? I believe this is the Renzetti Traveler. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. So we're going to get those started right on top of the shank of the hook. Wrap those back. Going to do 1 wrap right underneath them. Get those tails kind of perched up. 1 wrap, 2 wraps, and then we're good. So now what you want to do is kind of pre-split your tails, just using your fingers so you can kind of see how those tails are split. They're obviously super long right now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of this 70 denier thread, the one we saved earlier, and we're going to feed it through this little gap here. And we're going to wrap 1 piece see if I can do this so you guys can see it a little bit. Because this is a really cool way to split tails, and it works for a lot of flies, not just this one. So we're going to try and split one right through that and one right through here. So one on both sides of the middle 5-vat. So let's do that. And what that does is just lets you get those tails split and keep them split without building a lot of bulk on the back end of this fly. So we're going to do that. Pull that forward, tighten it down, and you can trim those off a little bit. Next, we're going to wrap in just a piece of extra small black wire. I like to wrap it on the side closest to me just so I can see it. All right. And we're going to go forward, build up our body a little bit. Trim off that mess that we got going at the front. So, I know you guys can't see it, but my body's a little bit uneven. We got a little bit of reverse taper going here, so we're just going to fix that real quick. Sweet. So now that the body's a little bit even, I'm just going to take this X small wire, and that's just going to be our ribbing. I'm going to wrap that up. I know I wrap this backwards. I don't know why I do it. I've always done it like that. So get that tied off. Now we're going to take we're going to use or get our wing case going here. So this is just some thin skin. And kind of same technique as I like to use for my yellow Sally, I'm going to use with this thin skin on this fly as far as creating the size of the wing case. I like this little piece of wing case kind of to be the same width as the bead. Just makes it look proportionate. So I'm going to get that going on the top of the hook here. Kind of about 60-40 on our proportions for the wing case, or for the thorax and the body. So once we get that tied on, we're going to take, so what this is, it's just a little, I guess, salsa jar, but I have it filled with Senyo's Shaggy Dub, which is just when you open up the package, it's an entire package of just, you know, a million little tiny rubber legs, and which makes really cool little nymph legs, and it can be a little bit difficult to work with, but it's kind of worth it for the effect they get. So you kind of pick through them, see if you can find one that's decently straight. Gonna wrap that. So what I just did there, I'm sure you guys gotta know how to do this is, boom. So we're just gonna X-wrap that right on the top. 2 X's should be good. 1 tie wrap in front, and those are in. They're gonna stay. So I like to do a little bit of rough trim. We're gonna come back through and shorten everything up at the end. Pick through, see if you can find another straight-ish piece of that shaggy dub or the little rubber legs. We're going to do the same thing, kind of right in the middle of those back legs and the bead. So we're going to do 3 sets of legs on this fly. Same thing, X-wrap. So I don't know if you guys can see that too well. We got 2 sets of legs sitting there on top of top of the fly. Set other colors. Yeah, other colors do work too. To be honest with you, this chartreuse one is the color I fish the least. I fished the purple and the olive probably the most. Just did the chartreuse in hopes that it would kind of help you guys see it a little bit better. So same thing here. Last set of legs. Something that will happen when you're tying a weighted version of this is when you go to tie in that last set, last set of legs, and it'll try and kind of suck that leg underneath the bead. So if you do some thread wraps right behind the bead, usually 3 or 4 is plenty. It'll kind of stop that from happening, which is annoying when it does. It took me entirely too long to figure out that's what the issue was. Awesome. So those legs don't have to be perfect right now, as long as they're kind of split apart and sitting roughly where you want them. Because what we're going to do is we're going to come through with some gray superfine dry fly dubbing. And you can use this dry fly dubbing as you're building up this thorax to kind of get those legs separated and situated kind of where you want them. So once we get those wrapped, awesome. So as you can see now, we kind of got a little bit of a gray thorax. Now just kind of your typical betas here as far as color scheme and stuff like that. But these little rubber legs, I think, really do help the effectiveness of this fly. They can move a little bit underwater. Obviously, when you cut them, they're cut pretty short. Obviously, they're cut pretty short, so they're not going to move a whole bunch. But I think one of the things they do really well is they catch water, and they kind of help that fly flutter and tumble down the river, kind of like a mayfly that got picked up by the current. Just tumbling. So we're going to cut that wing case off. Then we're just going to take a black Sharpie. Same thing. Kind of dab up those thread wraps on the top. I like to color the wing case black. Depends on my mood, I guess. Sometimes I color them black, sometimes I forget. I don't know that the fish really care. It's more for what you like to do. Let's trim this off first. So tails, we're going to trim them off about the length of the body. Just pinch them all together, trim them at the same time. And for the legs, we're going to do about half the length of the body. And we'll come in with some UV resin. And I like to start this resin from the back and drag it forward onto the top of that thorax. And that kind of gives you a nice little bubbled effect. We'll hit that with the light. The name of this fly is the Micro Matcher. So this is the weighted version. This kind of has a 1.5 millimeter tungsten bead on the front. You can get the unweighted version of this fly at your fly shop if it carries Umpqua flies. Sweet. So there's that. Grab a box. I don't know if you guys can see kind of what those are supposed to look like here. Kind of looking at these guys. Anyways. So awesome. And if anybody had any questions that I missed, please ask me again because I will definitely answer. I get focused on time and then I forget to look down at the questions. So definitely ask the question again if you need to. All right. So next fly we're going to tie is called a gunslinger. I wish I could tell you who invented this fly, where it came from. If one of you guys knows, please let me know so I can thank this person because this fly has saved a lot of days for me and friends on the river. It's a great fly. How did I come up with the micro matcher? No, that's a really good question.